In this video, I want to go over one of the most deeply emotional stories ever told about Darth Vader in Star Wars Legends. A story that reveals a moment of rare humanity beneath the mask of the galaxy's most feared figure. In the short story Vader Adrift from Star Wars Insider, Vader finds himself stranded after a catastrophic explosion, isolated in the void of space and forced to rely on a lone soldier who comes to his rescue. But it wasn't just any Imperial soldier, it was an old clone trooper, a man who had once served directly under Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, long before he became Darth Vader. In the time that they spend together, Vader confronts something he spent decades running from, the ghost of Anakin. It's a brief and tragic encounter that reminds us that beneath all the armor and hatred, there was still a trace of Anakin. In this video, I want to explore the full story, the circumstances that led to Vader's rescue, the moment he revealed who he truly was to this clone, and what this encounter reveals about the broken man trapped inside the Sith Lord's armor. In this story, Vader doesn't face an enemy. He faces the memory of the man that he used to be. The story begins in the aftermath of destruction. High above the world of Hokaleg, a battle station known as the Tarkin, which was a superweapon modeled after the laser of the Death Star itself, has just been obliterated in a blinding explosion. The blast consumes dozens of Imperial ships and leaves Darth Vader's TIE fighter spiraling out of control, tossed through space like debris caught in a storm. When the shockwave passes, Vader's fighter is crippled. From the cracked viewport, he surveys the chaos. As he floats helplessly among the wreckage, Vader senses that the galaxy has once again left him behind. He feels nothing but loss. He has once again failed to capture his son, Luke Skywalker. Vader stares into space, feeling as though the universe itself has conspired to rob him of the one thing that still gives his existence meaning. Inside the cockpit, Vader thinks of his master. He knows the Emperor will be furious at the destruction of the Tarkin, but that thought doesn't frighten him, it irritates him. Inwardly, he feels trapped in a cycle of failure and obedience. He is weary of the Emperor's games, of bureaucrats who pretend to command him, of being reduced to a symbol of fear rather than a true warrior. And as he drifts through the wreckage, he convinces himself of one simple truth, that the Force will not let him die. Vader believes that his continued survival, no matter how painful or empty, is the will of the Force itself. After what feels like an eternity of isolation, a new light appears in the distance. Vader assumes it's a rescue craft from his personal Star Destroyer, the Executor. But as the ship draws closer, he realizes it's not a Navy vessel at all. It's a small shuttle rising from the surface of Hokaleg, a local transport, out of place among the wreckage. Through his viewport, Vader catches sight of the pilot, a stormtrooper, and yet something about his presence feels different. Vader uses the flickering systems of his fighter to signal the pilot, and the shuttle adjusts course, moving to intercept. When the craft stabilizes beside him, the trooper aligns the airlocks perfectly. Vader climbs from his ruined fighter into the shuttle's airlock and steps inside. The pressurization hiss fades, replaced by the steady hum of the shuttle's engines and Vader's respirator. Standing on the bridge, the trooper turns sharply to face him. Vader studies him for several moments before speaking, questioning why a stormtrooper is piloting a rescue craft alone with no officer aboard. The trooper explains that he had been stationed at Hokaleg's launch bay when the Tarkin exploded, and that he left his post to search for survivors. There is something in the way that he speaks that catches Vader off guard, a rhythm that feels old and familiar. Vader asks if he served in the Clone Wars, and the trooper says yes. The words hit with unexpected weight. It has been decades since Vader has spoken to a clone, the soldiers who once fought and died under him when he was Anakin Skywalker. The armor is different now, the voice weathered with age, but the mannerisms are the same. This isn't some conscript born of Imperial propaganda. This is one of his old soldiers, and for the first time in years, Vader feels a faint flicker of something he cannot quite name. Perhaps nostalgia, perhaps guilt, but unmistakably human. As they return to Hochelaga, Vader continues to question the man who rescued him. The clone explains that after the Clone Wars ended, he was reassigned to serve under a non-clone commanding officer. This new superior treated the clones as expendable property, not as men. When the officer ordered him to execute a wounded comrade who had been injured in combat but not mortally hurt, the clone refused. The officer tried to kill him for disobedience, and in that moment he broke the man's jaw before being court-martialed and sent to solitary confinement for a year. Afterward, he was demoted and reassigned as a stormtrooper, stripped of rank but not of his identity. Vader listens in silence, absorbing every word. The man doesn't apologize for what he did, nor does he seem to regret it. His loyalty isn't rooted in blind obedience or ambition. It comes from something purer, camaraderie. He saved another soldier simply because it was the right thing to do, and that notion stirs something deep within Vader. Once, long ago, he too fought for his friends, for his master, for his comrades, for those he loved. When Vader asks if the clone would ever disobey him, he answers without hesitation that he would only do so if it meant keeping Vader alive. The words linger between them, heavy and unexpected. For a brief moment, Vader is silent. The notion that someone might value his life for reasons beyond fear or duty feels foreign to him. The Emperor doesn't care whether he lives or dies. The officers aboard his fleet fear him, but they would gladly see him dead. This single clone, a soldier forgotten by time, shows him a kind of loyalty he hasn't felt since the days of the Republic. For the first time in years, Vader feels a connection to another living being, and he allows himself to sit with that feeling, even if only for a moment. But as the shuttle begins its descent towards Hochelaga's surface, the warmth of that connection fades into unease. Something on the planet below has gone terribly wrong. When the shuttle lands near the main spaceport, Vader and the clone disembark into a scene of devastation. Smoke rises from the structures ahead, and the faint scent of ozone hangs in the air. Bodies lie scattered on the ground. It's immediately clear that the laborers have revolted, enraged by the destruction they witnessed in orbit. Vader walks slowly through the carnage, his mechanical breathing echoing around him. They find a wounded trooper slumped against a wall. The clone kneels beside him and learns that the garrison has fallen, that the workers turned on their overseers, killing anyone in Imperial armor. The man dies before he can say more. Before long, the sound of blaster fire erupts from an alleyway. 5 armed men rush into view, firing wildly. Vader raises his hand and deflects the shots effortlessly, moving forward at an unhurried pace. The rebels freeze, realizing too late that they are standing before the Dark Lord himself. But as they lower their weapons, another blast comes from behind. There's a metallic thud, followed by the crack of armor striking the ground. The clone falls to his knees, clutching his side. In an instant, the chaos fades into silence. Vader turns, his gaze locking on the fallen soldier who just saved him. Vader kneels beside the wounded clone and removes his helmet. Beneath it is the face of an old clone, the same familiar features of Jango Fett, but lined and aged, marked by decades of service and loss. The man's breathing is ragged, and Vader knows immediately that he won't survive. But even now, the clone shows no fear. His only concern is that Vader is unharmed. In that moment, something stirs within the Sith Lord, something buried deep and long forgotten. He looks down at this soldier and sees not a stranger, but a reflection of a life he once lived. He recognizes him as one of his own men, a pilot who served under General Skywalker during the Clone Wars. He remembers the unit, the battles they fought together, and the courage this man once showed in the face of impossible odds. Vader tells him that, and the dying clone smiles faintly, as if he'd suspected the truth all along. He knew that Vader was Anakin. There's a brief, wordless understanding between them, the kind that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. The clone dies peacefully, his final expression calm and content, as though he had finally been reunited with the commander he'd once known. For several moments, Vader remains still. The sound of his breathing is the only movement in the silence, and in that fragile stillness, the walls of the Dark Lord begin to crack. Beneath the armor, beneath the machine, Anakin Skywalker resurfaces, not as a hero or a Jedi, but as a man who has lost another one of his brothers. But when Vader rises, the moment of humanity fades. The workers who fired the fatal shot are frozen in place, terrified, trembling at the sight of him. They try to plead for mercy, insisting they didn't know that he was even on Hokaleg, that they didn't mean to harm him. But the words mean nothing. The grief in Vader's chest hardens into fury. The brief flicker of light that had emerged inside him extinguishes as quickly as it came. He ignites his lightsaber. What follows is left unsaid, but the outcome is certain. The men who had begged for forgiveness are cut down without hesitation. When the silence returns, so does the mask. The brief presence of Anakin Skywalker is gone. All that remains is the Dark Lord of the Sith. Vader Adrift is one of the most devastating stories in all of Star Wars because it strips away the myth and shows us the man beneath the armor. Not necessarily in battle or in rage, but in a moment of solitude. This is Vader at his most human, and that's what makes it so tragic. The clone trooper who saved him wasn't just a rescuer. He was a mirror, reflecting the compassion, loyalty, and courage that Anakin Skywalker once embodied. In that brief encounter, Vader was reminded of what he used to stand for, and of everything he's lost. But even in that flicker of connection, the tragedy of Darth Vader endures. He allows himself a single moment of vulnerability before burying it beneath the darkness once again. The clone dies, and with him dies another piece of Anakin Skywalker. The man who might have wept once for a fallen soldier now hides beneath the only identity he has left, the monster the galaxy created. We know that Luke Skywalker was the only one who could fully bring Anakin back. In the end, Vader Adrift isn't just about survival. It's about a man who keeps surviving when he no longer wants to. A man who drifts endlessly between the light and the dark, haunted by ghosts of his past and condemned to destroy anything that dares remind him of who he used to be. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did, and as always, may the Force be with you.